Hi, my name's Mel Marsden. I'm the founder and director of COMUNiTI. We're a workplace strategy, design advisory, and change leadership studio. I'm about to jump on the online prosperity show where I'm going to share with Prosper a little bit about my own personal journey growing up, what's led me to creating dynamic workplaces, and how you can start to transform your workplace to create an environment that is going to see your business flourish and your people thrive. I can't wait to hear what you've got to say about the episode.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Online Prosperity Show, your premium destination where we dive into the journeys of extraordinary individuals that are transforming their industries. I'm your host, Prosper Taruvinga, and today we're going to be exploring the dynamic intersection of design, culture, and human potential. Now, Melissa, how are you doing today?
I'm very well, thank you, Prosper. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. I'm really excited about what we're about to jump into. You know, when it comes to the human potential being influenced by the environments that we live in or work in, it's quite a fascinating subject. And so many people always, forget that or never know the existence or the importance of all of that. Now, in this short time together, we're going to be exploring how we reimagine places that inspire pride, connect people, and also where your business can actually perform and be profitable and enjoyable. So for those that are watching right now, I want you to imagine a workplace that just doesn't house employees, but actually inspires them, and a space where design meets purpose and where your culture actually thrives. And our guest today, Melissa Marsden, doesn't just imagine that, she actually creates that. So Melissa is the visionary founder and director of COMUNiTI. I don't know if I say that right, Melissa.
Yep, that's correct. It's COMUNiTI.
Right. I like how you spelled that. Maybe it's the aesthetic and everything else that comes along with that. We'll be exploring that. Now, she comes with over 2 decades of experience, and Melissa is a workplace dynamics strategist who reimagines work environments to drive high performing teams, and her unique approach aligns hearts, bodies, and minds to create spaces that positively influence behavior and performance. Now, Melissa, you promised you're not going to be judging my background, right? Because my workspace is designed for me. I can function in here and I can find everything. Tell us a little bit about how you got involved in making people feel bad about their places.
Not necessarily felt bad about their place. I've always had an interest in design. Creativity was in my blood from a very, very young age. And so I ran off to university as soon as I possibly could and was off to create a new journey for myself. And I actually wanted to be a graphic designer. And that was my first path down this. And when I went to university, my first year was a 3-strand year. So we did graphics, interiors, and industrial design. And at the end of that first year, I decided that if I had to design another logo for the rest of my life, I would poke my eyes out. And interior design sounded far more appealing. I'd had an inkling in it when I did work experience in grade 10. They sent me off to the curtain department at M.E.D.I.A, which was not quite my idea of interior design. But I thought I'm going to dive into this and give it a go. And 3-4 years later, I finished my degree and here we are. And so that was my journey into interior design, and figured out that it was something that I absolutely loved, being able to transform workplaces particularly. But I found workplaces a couple of years into my career. I first started out doing hospitality, hotels and restaurants, and then moved into workplace. And that's where I found my real happy place, because I found I have a real passion for business as well. And that was able to bring those two really interconnected pieces together, like creating environments that actually enable businesses to flourish and enable the people within them to really thrive. And so that was how I kind of found my way into this career.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for opening us up to that. Now, you did mention creativity at an early age. Melissa, I'll have you know, I have a 10-year-old and a 6-year-old that I live with, and creativity for them is just paper that's cut on the floor, stuff that's stuck on the carpet, and sometimes,
Yeah.
graffiti on the wall. So I'm just wondering what creativity was like for you. What were you up to?
Oh, I was into everything. So my mother and my father were both, I would say, very creative individuals as well. Dad was always making things, so he's very much the handyman, jack of all trades. And my mum was always sewing, and she did ceramics and made earrings and things out of clay. So it was always around me. And my grandmother, did sewing and needlework and things. And so I was always introduced to these sorts of really fine motor skills and these technical things from a very young age. And for me, that translated into drawing and painting. And then I would make earrings out of beads, and I would take them and sell them to the dentist whenever we went on our dental visits. So I had this entrepreneurial streak in me from a very young age as well. So that was kind of how it all kind of translated for me. And as I went through high school, that sort of blossomed into really leaning into the arts. So being really creative in that space, but also into woodwork and metalwork, and they call that technical studies. So I started doing, drafting and documentation, and then actually building these creations that I had imagined as well. So it was something that was always really kind of inspired and also kind of encouraged throughout my high school and my primary school days.
Absolutely. You know what I like about that? Because it's a whole mix of all the creative aspects. Like you're talking ceramics, wood, metal, all of those things are the actual elements that then create an environment if they're well put together. Now,
Yeah.
and I like that you did mention that you were supported along the way or encouraged, with the parents that were around. Half of the time, some parents, especially when it comes to ceramics are
Mhm.
fragile and things of that nature. Were you always not told, well, wait, you go play outside, don't get involved in any of these things, like what other parents are always doing to their kids?
Yeah, it was very much a play outside. Mum liked to keep her house very clean, and Dad had big sheds with lots of workshops in them, so I could go and tinker and make mess there. That was fine. But I also grew up in the country, so we lived on acreage, like 125 acres, so a farm, and it was just go out, play, get exposed to nature. There wasn't a lot of sit around and watch TV. It was get outside and do as much as you can and sort of nature play and make your own fun.
Absolutely. And I can only imagine you would maybe make playhouses, places that you would decorate on your own. And then that sort of talent came through. But one thing that you mentioned is designing logos was not part of what you would have wanted to do.
No.
Was that all that was sort of being offered around that time when it came to design? What was it like, the environment that you would
Yeah.
have? Yeah.
The graphic design part of the first year, there was a lot of different elements. We got exposed to, very different things. But I went and did work experience with a graphic design agency. And I remember it was designing logos, but also putting together these brochures for a washing machine catalogue. And I'm like, this is just not for me. Like, I couldn't stand sitting in front of a computer for that period of time. Like, that just wasn't my idea of what my career was going to look like. And I think the company that I was doing the work experience with identified that pretty early on. And they actually introduced me to an interior designer up the road. And I went and did work experience with her then. And I was designing water fountains and hotel lobbies and putting together, beautiful palettes for bathroom, for bedroom renovations for hotels. And I went, oh, this is actually more my speed. And I was getting out and I was visiting clients and going onto site and measuring things and then drawing them and getting to pull things together. So I was very tactile and using my hands and my creativity to kind of create these ideas and make them become a reality. And, I only did 2 weeks with each of these companies, and I walked out that one. Yeah, no, interior design is where I want to head, and that's what made my decision.
Absolutely. And part of your work experience also involved working in M.E.D.I.A. I usually get lost in that shop where you just stuck there and you just didn't know how to find your
Yeah.
way.
Yes. Yes.
Absolutely. Now, with all of this, I like how it's a culmination of, both your experience and also, the expertise that you acquired along the way. So it's not something that you just walked into a shop and you thought, wait a minute, these chairs are not aligned. So this is now going to be my job. What then inspired you to establish COMUNiTI?
I had been working as a director of a national firm for a number of years, and I realised that there was a bit of a values misalignment between us and where that was heading. And so I stepped out of that business and then kind of spent some time to figure out what I was going to do. I was potentially going to go and get a job, but I ended up with 3 clients very quickly after I had stepped out of the business. And I went, okay, well, I've got clients, let's start a business. And that was always my longer term intention, but I had never anticipated doing it so quickly. And then it kind of just went from there. So within a month, I had an employee and off we went. And COMUNiTI is just growing from strength to strength. We're 12 years into it now, and it's evolved considerably. It's a very different business to when I started it, but it's grown with me and it's adapted, and I've got to do work that I absolutely love doing.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for opening us up to that. Well, while you were being a director, obviously what you were doing at that particular time involved some sort of structure or some sort of, way of doing things that that company would have established and things of that nature. And that also involved you having a safe paycheck. That also involved you knowing, what your sort of direction would have been. Starting a business is not easy. And I think you were lucky because, like I said, you had 3 clients from the get-go. But what was it like now that you were no longer the director and you literally had to be the one that's servicing these clients and also looking after the business and the growth, plus hiring, like you said, you ended up with a new employee?
Yeah. I was doing a lot of that in the previous organisation already. So I had developed a lot of that skill sets in a safe space where I had been, exposed to that. I was running the Queensland office, director of the national firm, responsible for bringing in clients, leading the team, delivering the projects. So a lot of that was already kind of, I'd learnt the steps. So it was just a matter now of being responsible to make sure that I was doing that for myself. And to be honest, it got to a point where I just needed to release the pressure. And so actually stepping out of the business felt like a huge relief to me. And being able to then do it on my terms was actually probably part of the most exciting part of that. It was a challenge personally. I didn't do it completely blindly. I'd set myself up a bit of a nest egg. I knew that I had, at least 6 to 12 months worth of savings that I could get through if it all went to custard. And I knew that I was employable. So there was always, I had a backup plan, like I'll just go get another job. Fortunately, that hasn't happened. And I reckon today I'm probably not that employable because I don't think I'd comply to too many instructions. And I love the flexibility, even though I know running your own business can be highly inflexible. And it's a bit of a pipe dream to think that you've started a business for this, freedom and flexibility. You do have it, but within constraints. So yeah, it's been a wild ride, and I've learned a lot through the process. And yeah, I wouldn't change it.
Can imagine, and congratulations. I mean, it's not easy, first day, when you get started on your own. When you're used as a director, you probably walk into the place, the coffee is already set up, the milk is already in the fridge, and the staplers have the staple pins in them already, and the copier already has the paper in there. And then when you rock up to your own office now, you're the one that has to do all those things and supply yourself with all those particular things. But you did mention that as you set up and where COMUNiTI is right now, your sort of vision has evolved. How has that vision evolved and over the years?
Yeah, so 12 years ago, workplace strategy wasn't really a well-known thing. And so my business vision was always to do workplace strategy. However, if we'd set out with that as our main game from the very get-go, we would have all starved. So we were an interior design agency that provided workplace strategy as well. And I'd say that we were probably doing about 80% design and about 20% strategy. We were also quite multidisciplinary at that time too. So we were doing retail, we were doing hospitality, workplaces, airline lounges. So our service offering was far more diverse as well because we were more of an interior design studio. As we've transitioned and the business has evolved and the industry has kind of caught up, we are now a full service workplace strategy studio. We do design advisory, so we oversee the design and the execution, and we support clients to find the right design team, the right design partners. And then we do the change leadership and transformation. So really onboarding people within the workplace back into the new space, teaching them how to use and optimize the new work environment, what the new etiquettes, behaviors, team arrangements, everything down to even leadership training around what does change actually mean and how do you best support your people through change and transition purely in the workplace sector. So we've gone from being something that's very interior design focused and very, broad in our service offering and our client base to something that's very niche now. We're very much all workplace, professional corporate services, are typically our clients, and we support them in really understanding what their organizational culture looks like, their values, their strategic goals, and how their physical environment can actually enable their performance, both for their people and then therefore the business through the process that we guide them through to get from, where they are and where their new workplace is going to take them.
Absolutely. And it's usually our environments that really shape how we approach even, ourselves, the way we handle work and, our clients and things of that nature. Now, you've got a workplace dynamics blueprint that you sort of follow. Was that you just elaborated, or is there a set sort of criteria that you work with people in that sort of space, and how does it sort of differ from the traditional design approaches where people just put a table and a desk there and call it a work?
To answer your first question, so the Workplace Dynamics Blueprint is it looks at the 5 pillars that underpin the dynamics in every work environment. And so the first thing we look at is reimagining the future, because your workplace is going to be an environment that is going to support your business for the next minimum 5 years, most likely 15 years. A lot of change is going to happen to your business over that period of time. If we just look back and look how different our business is 5, 10, 15 years ago as we are today, it's been a significant transformation from where you were. And so we help clients to start to kind of crystal ball what their organisation might look like, because that's what we're designing a workplace for. We're not designing a workplace for tomorrow. We're designing it for something that's going to stand the test time for 15 years. And so that looks at, what is going to happen in terms of growth in the organisation? What is the structure of your organisation going to look like? What are the service streams you might be offering? What are the people you're hiring, the clients you're servicing? How is technology going to impact your business? Because, we're on the cusp of AI and ChatGPT and all of that transformation. And we only have to look back even just 5 years, and we've significantly changed how we work thanks to COVID and work from home and flexibility. So that's a big part of what we help clients really start to even just think about, because it's often something they haven't considered, and they don't often realize the impact that their workplace is going to have on the performance of their business, and for such a long time. So we start there. The next thing we dive into is the brand and the culture of the organisation. And when we talk about brand, we're not talking about the logo that goes on the wall. We're talking about the experience that people have when they do business with you. How do your employees feel when they come to work every day? How do you want them to feel? How do you want your clients to experience and feel what it's like to work with you? And brand really does guide the culture of the organisation, because once we know what the experience is that we want people to have, that's when our culture starts to come into play, because that's where the values sit, and we can start to then create some rules of engagement around what that looks like. So that leads into the next step, which is where we start to look at values and behaviours, because values are the espoused guideposts of the organisation. It's like what we are aspiring to do and deliver on. But there is a set of behaviours that sit underneath that. So every time we have a value, there's a set of expected behaviours that are actually demonstrating that employees and people within the organisation are aligning with those values. So we want to get to that, because When I understand the behavior that you are desiring in your particular workplace, we can actually influence that by the way that we design the space through the flow, like the way in order you move through a space, the way that we co-locate different spaces, the way that we zone things, the materiality, all of these things are influencing how you show up, the way that you work, and the way that you communicate. So when we understand that, we can get into that. We also look at well-being, because the physical, mental, and emotional well-being of your people is critical to the performance of your business. So we want to understand, what objectives do you have, what strategies have you got in place, and how can we support that through the design of the workplace. So is that making sure that there's enough quiet spaces? Is that making sure that there's somewhere that, is supporting mums returning to work? Is it providing, end of trip facilities so I can go to the gym and have a shower and be fresh for work? So thinking about what it is that you want to achieve from a wellness perspective for your people. And then the final pillar is employee experience. Now, this is a fewfold, because employee experience typically in HR language is about the journey that an employee will go on with your business. That's one part of it. The other part is actually looking at how your people are interacting. What's the experience that they're actually having in the workplace? And that's something that changes. We look at generational, demographics, all of these personality profiling to actually understand, well, what is the experience that each of these different people are going to have of working in the workplace, particularly neurodiversity. It's becoming a much more considered and talked about topic. So we want to be embracing that. But then finally, what is the experience that your people are going to have as you transition through this change? And so this is where the change management really starts to come in. How are we going to guide, support, educate people to transition from the environment that they know to the environment that we're going to be creating for them, and making sure that they've got the tools and the information that they need to do that as successfully as possible. So that's pretty much the workplace dynamics blueprint. And now I've forgotten the second part of your question, because that was a big answer.
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. And let's just maybe break down this blueprint a little bit, because so many people, there's so many moving parts, where part of what you say is reimagining the future. And, with that, and you have mentioned that there has been, these sort of disturbances that we've had in our sort of collective environment in the sort of last couple of years or so, that have really shaped the way people approach the work environment. I mean, in my own environment, the kitchen table became a school, became a boardroom, became a laundry room, became a restaurant, and everything else that comes along with it. So, I can only imagine what it would be like, especially in work environments and things of that nature. Now, do you see this hybrid model evolving and becoming part of, a staple in the way people work? And does your sort of, design principles and blueprint cater for things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that hybrid work is going to be the new normal. And a lot of the clients that I'm working with are already embracing it, because employees are asking for it. It's that flexibility, and giving people the flexibility and the choice over where and how they work, and empowers them. It gives them that sense of agency and encourages them to, and that's where discretionary effort comes from, is where I feel respected, and therefore I will contribute back into the organisation. And so what that means is that we then need to create work environments. So if we think about an office, for lack of a better term right now, if we think about the office, what role is that space playing in the performance of me doing my job day to day? So that's what I pose to my clients when we start these conversations is, okay, you've asked me to come in here and help you design your new office. Why? What role do you want it to play? What is the purpose of this space? Because if your employees can work from home and they can do that very efficiently, why do you want to have a workplace? It's a cost, it's, a massive overhead, you have to maintain it, all these other things. And what we start to uncover there is, well, we actually want it to enable people to come together. We want them to be able to connect, collaborate, socialize. Essentially, we're wanting them to build culture. So that is what our workplaces are there to do. It is to embed and support the development of culture in our organisations. Now, for some organisations, that might mean we still want people to be able to come in and sit at a workstation. It might mean that we need a lot of collaboration spaces. We also need to define what does collaboration actually look like in your business, because collaboration looks wildly different from one business to another, even one team to another. If you think about how the marketing team are going to collaborate versus the finance team, very, very different. So thinking about what we call then the tools, the spatial tools to support the types of activities that you want people to do. So we're coming back to behaviours again in the workplace. So really getting clear on that, because if you're thinking that you want your people to come and sit at a workstation Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, that may be how your organisation wants to function, but that's not how your people are going to need to function to do their best work. So when we can really start to understand that, we can start to then create a space that's going to support your organisation achieving all of its strategic objectives, aligning with the purpose, the vision, the values, everything that's really driving your business forward. That's when we can start to create a workplace that actually responds to that and enables it.
Absolutely. Now, Melissa, I mean, obviously you're going to wonder where this is going, but I love whiskey. All right. And whiskey creates what you're talking about, where somebody puts hops, barley, or whatever single malt flavors into an oak barrel, locks them up for 10 years, 15 years, and doesn't even open them up until it comes to time to bottle it. And I feel like this is what you guys do in a nutshell, where you create a space, like you said, that is going to transcend all this time and not necessarily know, obviously looking at the end in sight. Now, how do you then assess the effectiveness of your designs in enhancing this engagement and productivity over all this time? Are you continuously just going to sit in the foyer and look at how people are interacting, or are you just knowing that what you've created is going to last that lifetime?
Now I know, but to get to a point of knowing, it required a lot of follow-up. So we still do. At the completion of 12 months after a client has moved in, we do a post-occupancy survey. So we actually ask the employees for their feedback on how they're finding the new work environment. Is it making them happier? Do they feel more productive? How do they rate their collaboration, their communication, their job satisfaction? We look at these sorts of metrics to understand how they've changed from when we started the project in their previous environment to their new environment. And that data is very valuable. So we know that we're getting great results from that. We've also seen financial performance improve in clients. So one of our clients hit their highest financial record 6 months after moving into the new workplace, and they'd been in business for 35 years. So it had a significant impact on the performance of their business. And what they actually attributed that to was the fact that their people were able to collaborate easier, they were able to communicate easier, and that they had a higher degree of cross-functional interaction, which meant that they were able to cross-sell across departments to existing clients. So there's some real performance indicators that start to show that these workplaces are successful. That and the fact that I have repeat clients who come back to me when they're ready to do their next workplace, or their business has been through a significant restructure or evolution, and they're like, okay, we need to adapt and modify this to suit our next business horizon.
Absolutely. I can only imagine, once there's a flow of energy, flow of conversations, business will actually thrive, because obviously if they were operating from a silo and there was not that, enhanced connection amongst the people, then it would not actually enhance the business. Now, based on what you have said, all of this sounds really, really amazing, and a business would want to jump onto it and, sort of want to work with it. What sort of businesses are you sort of inviting to maybe initiate a conversation with you? Because, I mean, not everyone is going to be suited to be a customer of yours.
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of the work that we do is with professional services firms. So accountants, lawyers, engineers, tech companies, service-based businesses. In terms of scale, as small as 30 people we've done work for and had, really great results, all the way up to, we do a lot of work for local councils as well. So we've done work with City of Gold Coast, we've done work with Sunshine Coast Council, Fraser Coast, Redland City Council. So we've done a lot of local government work as well. So we do work on both sides of the fence. So whether you're an independently owned professional services firm and you're at the smaller end, or you're in those sort of larger local government type organisations, we work across all of that. The principles are the same. The results and outcomes are highly different because we're dealing with much bigger scale. We're dealing with, a lot more volume of space, a lot more people. But the principles in terms of working through the process and understanding what's required and how the outcome is going to best suit your business, that's very consistent across those different aspects as well.
What would be the usual sort of first process that somebody would take in order to see if they're a fit to be working with COMUNiTI?
Yeah. First steps, usually someone's checked out my website. They may have had a referral from a previous client who's been, telling them amazing things about us, which is always a great thing. They might have tuned into my podcast, which is Work Life by Design, visited our website, which is comuniti.com.au, or even my personal website, melissamarsden.com.au. And there's some, downloadable white papers on there as well. So they've usually got some sort of sense of who we are and what we do. From there, reach out. We have a discovery call. So we want to get to understand what it is that you're actually trying to achieve, whether or not this is something that we can support you with. And if not, we will gladly direct you to someone who is going to be able to support you. But from that discovery call, we'd really then start to understand, well, what are some of the ways that we could help you transition your workplace from where you are to where you want to be? And from that, we would then develop a proposal which would respond to all of those key success criteria that we would establish from that discovery call, to then be able to take the next steps and dive in and start the journey together.
Absolutely. And I'll definitely make sure that we've got all those links in the show notes so that the people that are watching right now can obviously get started with you. So if you're watching this right now and you're ready to transform your workplace into a hub of inspiration and productivity, be sure to check out the links in the show notes below. And also, maybe you can share with us what recent improvements have you done to your environment in the comments below, and Melissa would always be happy to have a chat with you if you are now ready to get started on the journey. Now, Melissa, when we started the conversation today, you introduced us to young Melissa, who was obviously growing up and being told to play outside and things of that nature. But obviously now we've got adult Melissa. Does she also have those that she tells to go play outside of any variety?
Yes, I have 3 little children who I definitely encourage to play outside. Whether they take my advice or not is another question. But yeah, my little kids, I've got a 14-year-old girl, a 7-year-old girl, and a little boy who's about to turn 3 next week. So they keep me extremely busy, but yeah, they're pretty good fun. And I take them out. We just visited my parents. They're still on the farm where I grew up. So they love going out there and hanging out and chasing the sheep and the goats and everything around and playing with all the animals and exploring. So it's fantastic.
Great stuff. You're about to have a 3-nager. So I don't know if you're ready for that.
Oh, he's already a 3-nager. He's a high achiever.
Absolutely. But how do you navigate now the challenges of obviously balancing personal and professional responsibility? And obviously, 3 kids is not an easy feat, and this is where everybody's now saying, how does she do it?
It's been a juggle, the famous words, but I have always really loved working and I loved my career. And with my 2 youngest children, I returned to work just 2 weeks after they were born, but they came with me. So they, were under the desk in the capsule from a very young age. They've been taken to site meetings. They've been dragged around with me. And then as they got a bit older, we got some support in. I had a nanny who came in and helped me do that as well. And at about sort of 9 months old, they then transitioned and started to to hand over to daycare. So that's kind of been our care journey, and it's worked pretty well for us. It's been intense and, you know, quite a lot at times, but that's the way that it's worked for us. My husband's pretty hands-on too, which is always a good help to keep everything running. But yeah, we just kind of do the best that we can with what we've got and make sure that, you know, we're giving them as much attention and time as we can, and then also, you know, working in our respective careers and businesses to be able to do that as well.
Absolutely. I love that balance, and kudos to you for being able to handle it. I mean, because to whom much is given, much is required. And this also explains why you did mention in one of your responses that you also design for returning mothers to work. And this is maybe emanating from lived experience, right? It's not something that is an afterthought. You've actually had to go through this, which makes your work obviously remarkable. If it would have been somebody like myself, I wouldn't even know where to start.
Yeah, it's been interesting. And I think COVID has changed that perspective a little bit, because the returning to work for a mother is less now about returning to work in a physical environment. It's, you know, like in the office per se. They're returning to work, but they're working from home and having that flexibility. But a lot of that comes down to the cultural objectives of the organisation as well. One of my clients pre-COVID actually had built a parents' room in their business, and parents, both male and female, were encouraged to bring their child into work, and it had a play mat, it had a breastfeeding chair, it had a change table, and there was an area of the workplace where they could actually, you know, work alongside their child but inside the business. So just depends on the cultural objectives of the organisation and how they want to bleed these two things together. But it's definitely something that I'm conscious of when we're creating workplaces, because at a minimum, a breastfeeding room is required, because a lot of mums are still pumping. They want to still continue to breastfeed their children, and having that facility that's not the toilet and it's not a meeting room with no privacy, is having a dedicated space to be able to support that is really great to consider those that we're really wanting to attract back into our workplaces and to support them on that journey.
Absolutely. And for you, it's not necessarily just about design and things of that nature. I did notice on your website, you have a women's retreat that you creating, and it is a significant milestone. I mean, coming from the busy life to just let go, like you obviously are going to be creating for these people. What sort of motivated this endeavor, and what can participants anticipate in this?
Yeah, so I'm all about creating a work life that you love. And so when I'm creating physical environments, it's as much about supporting the individuals in that journey. And as I said earlier, we do the change transformation at the other end to help people re-on board. But a big part of that is helping them understand, well, what's my own personal working rhythms? What's going to support me in being the best employee and getting the best out of my career as well? And so that's kind of led me into business coaching as well. So I support female business leaders who are, you know, starting businesses, running businesses, who have got to a point where the business is actually running them. And as we were talking about earlier, you know, we think we're creating a business for flexibility, and in the end, there's zero. And we become a bit of a slave to everyone else around us. And a lot of that comes down to structure, it comes down to boundaries, it comes down to being really clear on what it is that you want to do and how you want to work. And so I support a lot of women in that space to really get that clarity and help them create a business and a life that they love. And one of the things is, I know from my own personal experience that I haven't always done that. And so I've built a toolkit now that helps me reassess that. I know what I need to be evaluating to be able to keep, you know, riding that ship. And we do drift off course. We get, you know, distracted, and we've got to keep returning back. And after the birth of my little baby boy, I went through a period where about 18 months ago, I was diagnosed with adrenal fatigue and body burnout, a range of gut and health issues as well. And so I've been on my own healing journey through that period of time. And that's when I realized, and I started sort of when I felt well enough to be able to tell other people that I was going through this, that there were so many other women who were resonating with it. They're like, oh my God, me too. And that's when I realized that there was a massive calling for a space like this to support women to reconnect with themselves. We've become so disconnected because we're so busy. We're running households, we're, running careers, we're trying to keep it all together, and we're putting on the mask and showing up in our suit and our makeup and our smile every day. And behind the scenes, we're falling apart. And it's heartbreaking. And so I wanted to create a safe space for these women to be able to come. It's a gentle environment. So I know some retreats can be quite extreme and they're very transformational. And I have been on those retreats and they are exactly that. But when you're in those first early stages, that's not the best first step for you. It's probably, that's really diving in the deep end. And so I wanted to create an environment where they can kind of dip their toe in the water, see what this personal development thing is all about, and create an environment where they're really held, they're supported, and they're cared for. So we'll be doing that through gentle movements. We've got some yoga, we've got breath work. I've got an incredible catering team who are supplying all the food. So it's all going to be delicious, nutritious, organic, adrenal supportive food throughout the time. We've got sound healing. We've got some fantastic co-facilitators joining us on the retreat. But it's just a real opportunity for you to disconnect, let go so that someone else can take care of you. And as the name suggests, just exhale, let go of that breath that you've been holding for so long. So, I'm super excited about that to happen later this year in October.
Absolutely. And how can people jump on board and start breathing at least? Oh, exhaling.
Exhale, yeah. If they head over to my website, melissamarsden.com.au, on the homepage, there's a link through to Exhale, the retreat. It's happening in the Tweed Valley on October 23rd, later this year. But all the details are there and you can read more about the experience. And the Tweed Valley is just beautiful. It's this beautiful, pristine piece of nature. And that's the other big part of the retreat, was really about nature immersion. So going back to, getting outside and spending time in nature, this is a big part of this retreat as well, because I think many of us living in cities have become disconnected from the natural seasons and cycles of living. And that's actually going to be one of the other conversations that we have as cyclical beings, being much more attuned to our own cyclical nature and being immersed in nature, and how that nature deprivation is actually impacting our biology, our psychology, and our, gut microbiomes and everything else. And so we'll be supporting all of that through this beautiful experience.
Absolutely. It's all about the seasons. There's a time to plant and there's a time to reap. There's a time to for everything else, but not if you're in Melbourne. Yeah. You just need to just wait outside for a minute, and then pretty much you
get all the seasons in one day. That's the difference.
You get your fix. You just wait outside. You don't know whether to wear a fair coat or speedos. It's all there.
Layers. Gotta go with layers.
But Melissa, I don't know if you've noticed, we've actually come full circle here. When you started, you were showcasing young Melissa, who was being told to go play outside with dirt, sticks and stones, so to say. And obviously, pretty much from there, you went on a journey, discovered all these things about, using elements of your environment to and have a happier existence. And now you literally have come back to retreats where you are, again, bringing people back to nature and things of that nature. Have you ever connected the dots like that, or is that something that we're experiencing at this very moment?
No, I have actually recently connected those dots, and it's been a bit of a process for me to kind of work my way through that as well. And I've realized from my own journey that nature deprivation has actually been a significant impact in my own physical and mental well-being, because it means it's a big part of me, having grown up and having that freedom and that expansiveness of space. I've started to realize how much I really enjoy that, and how much I enjoy camping and getting out in nature and swimming in the rock pools. And even just the joy that gives me. And I want to be able to share that with other people. And so I've done a huge amount of research on nature deprivation and the impact of, the way that being in communion with nature actually influences our health. And there's so many studies that support this now. And enabling other people to experience that would be really magical.
Absolutely. Now that explains the botanical garden that's behind you there.
Yeah, all my beautiful plants.
Oh, fantastic. Now,
Mm,
Melissa, I can't thank you enough for the time that we spent on the call today. I mean, your life story and your experience have just really, obviously, will resonate with a lot of people on a professional level and also on a personal level, because we've touched on all of those aspects. And obviously, those that would like a certain aspect of what you're doing, they have something, for them to latch onto. So if they're interested in the design aspect of the business, obviously, COMUNiTI is there. And you also have a retreat for, there are the women that might be inspired by your journey.
mm,
So thank you so much for leading the way. But now that we've obviously experienced your journey, you've taken us into your world and you've given us all these other options. You did mention that you designed for 15 years within a business. What have you designed for Confetti or for Melissa for the next 15 years that we can be on the lookout for?
ah. I think it's more of the same. And I've recently reflected on this. So at the beginning of every year, I take myself through a process which it's an experience that I give offer to other people. It's called Live a Life by Design, and I take my coaching clients through it as well. And so I practice what I preach, and I do this at the beginning of every year. And what I've started to realize is that over the last sort of 2 to 3 years, my vision for my life has been very consistent. So my goals have started to be quite repetitive. And I don't talk to them about in sense of goals. I actually talk to them in terms of intentions, because it's more about who I want to be than what I'm actually trying to do. And that being aspect, I'm refining. So, and I've been doing this process for about 10 years now. And as I said, it's been the last 2 to 3 that I'm starting to see. It's just, I want more of the same. And so I think we've, evolved the business to a point where I'm extremely happy with it. I love the structure. I love the flexibility that I have now created in the business. I love the team that I get to work with and how we do that, the type of work that we get to deliver, the fact that I then also get to run retreats and do business coaching and everything else. I'm very multi-passionate in what I do. And I think now I've started to create a life and a business. It's very much on my own terms, but that has obviously been, a 10-year journey to get here. And so at this point in time, my vision is that you will see very much of the same thing, but, just spreading the love a bit more with more people and more companies as we get to do the work with them.
Absolutely. Now, like I said, thank you so much for obviously sharing your inspiring journey and all these insights about creating spaces that truly matter. And from what I'm gathering, these spaces could be external, the environmental
Yes.
ones, and also the internal spaces for us to actually feel comfortable
Mm.
in our own environment. And I think you've got both worlds aligned there. So thank you so much for opening that sort of channel for us there. Now, for those that are watching right now, if you've ever experienced a workspace that actually transformed maybe your productivity or well-being, I want you to share your story in the comments below. I want us to maybe continue the conversation, about the power of design in shaping our lives. And as Melissa has, elaborated here, the space within and also the space without should
Mm.
influence how you actually, experience this very existence of ours. And obviously, don't forget to subscribe to the Online Prosperity Show so you do not miss out on any of these enlightening episodes that we've got lined up for you. Because in our very next episode, we're going to be exploring ideas that can lead you to a happier existence. Until next time, keep reimagining those workplaces and creating business and performance improvements both outside and inside. Bye for now.